Hello everyone, Jeff here with you for episode number 37 of the Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz here on YouTube. This is a GMTE Express add-on exclusive as we have AEW and NXT going head-to-head once again this week. For both Dynamite and NXT, this is a special edition. This is the first of 2 weeks of special programming. For AEW Dynamite, this is the first of 2 weeks for Fyter Fest 2020. And for NXT, it is the first of 2 weeks for the Great American Bash. So we'll see what both shows deliver here in week one. Let's begin with AEW Fighter Fest 2020. This was live from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. The show opened up with Chris Jericho making a grand entrance coming out. He's on commentary here with Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur for most of the show, not the entire show. Jericho's commentary was spot on, and the jacket he was wearing, because it was Canada Day, he had this special Canada Day type blazer jacket he was wearing, very nice, and the commentary I thought was pretty good for the most part. MJF and Wardlow come out here for a promo before their match against the Jungle Express. Good stuff here from MJF. He just hypes up the match here, and then we just get going here with the Jungle Express coming out eventually. Jungle Boy gets the early jump here. He looks strong early on with some clotheslines, and then MJF and Wardlow take over on him for a while. They just throw him around here, treating him like a rag doll, doing heel type things. Eventually Luchasaurus gets the hot tag. He runs wild for a while with kicks. MJF tagged out as soon as he had an opportunity. Then we had Warlord and Luchasaurus just doing power moves on one another, and then Jungle Boy recovery. He took out MJF with a few dives out of the ring. Luchasaurus followed suit and took Warlord out with a dive of his own. Marco Stunt eventually tries to get involved late in the match. Warlord caught him and wound up launching him into Jungle Boy. MJF tried to use the diamond ring as a weapon. He almost initially hits Warlord, and then you heard MJF said, "You can't do anything right. Can't you do anything right?" he said. And then eventually they did a deal where Jungle Express were able to ultimately throw Warlord into MJF into the diamond ring. MJF gets knocked out of the ring. They hit some moves on Warlord, and eventually they get the win here in a surprise. So Jungle Express gets the win here over MJF and Warlord. Of course, they protect MJF. Warlord takes the pin here. They were planting some more seeds here for the eventual split up of MJF and Warlord. They must clearly see some big things in the cards for Warlord in the future. So it looks like that split is coming down the line. So Jungle Express got what I thought was a surprise win. I figured MJF and Warlord were winning this one. The match is solid here. The one little gripe I have about it, I thought the pacing was just a little bit too slow for my liking, but overall it's a solid match. Next up is the AEW Women's title match. We have Akira Shida defending that title against Penelope Ford. Of course, Kip Sabian comes out with Penelope Ford before the match gets started. Referee Aubrey Edwards actually throws out and ejects Kip Sabian for whatever reason. Didn't see why he did. Now, Kip Sabian took the kendo stick that Shida comes out with, and of course that would be very important later on in the match, as we would find out. Shida hits a running knee once the bell gets going here, and then Penelope Ford tries to regain her composure. She would take a lot of offense here for a while before they got outside the ring. Then she threw Shida into the barricade, and then Shida came back and hit another running knee. Then Penelope Ford dodged another running knee attack, then hit a backspring elbow followed by a German suplex for a close near fall. And then Penelope Ford just continued to ground Shida into the camel clutch. Then she was able to break free and apply a sleeper and a stretch submission before hitting a brutal backbreaker for a very close count here. She did hit the Falcon Arrow initially here, but Penelope Ford countered the pin and actually almost got the win. Both women had the win at several points here as they were getting late in the match, both trying to go for wins here. Teasing finishes here. Kip Sabian eventually does come back out with the kendo stick. Shida was able to disarm him of it, and then she actually used it on Kip Sabian to take him out of the action. Penelope Ford continued to battle back. She kicked out of a couple more finishers, and then Shida hit one more big running knee to the face for the pin and the win to retain. I will say right off the bat, this has by far been the best women's match in AEW to date. Clearly, this was pretty good stuff here. Good chemistry here from Shida and Penelope Ford. Just outstanding stuff here. The one little gripe I had about this match, I thought it was a little bit sloppy at times, but other than that, by far the best women's match in AEW to date. Next up was the TNT Championship match. We have Cody Rhodes, of course, with Arn Anderson taking on Jake Hager here. If you notice when Cody was coming out with Arn Anderson, if you saw the shirt he was wearing, he had the American Nightmare shirt on, but if you noticed the design of the shirt, and I'm sure I was not the only one who saw this, I'm sure a lot of other people saw it as well. The design of the American Nightmare shirt, I should say, had the old school Great American Bash design to it, which was kind of interesting. I picked up on that right away, and I'm sure a lot of others did as well, so very interesting stuff here. So Jake Hager, of course, with his size and strength, he just dominates Cody here for a while. Eventually Cody goes for a single leg takedown. He got put back into a headlock, and then both men managed to counter an ankle lock submission from each other. Hager then eventually goes after Arn Anderson on the outside. Cody dove over the top rope to cut him off. Hager caught him in midair and then slammed him into the mat to counter a disaster kick. And then eventually he did a deal where he shoved, and I use that in air quotes, Arn Anderson into the barrier area. Didn't really hit him all that hard, though. Anderson did sell it a little bit. Eventually Hager was able to hit a suplex on the floor to Cody, and Cody ultimately was able to recover. He hit a cutter off the top rope for some more momentum, and Jake Hager's wife Catalina, who was out there with him, so she didn't really play much of a factor. At one point she does slap Cody, but then Dustin Rhodes actually ran down and evened things up by hitting Jake Hager, and then Cody just gets the upper hand afterwards, and then Hager went for a submission here, but Cody countered it into a pin and actually won and retained the title. So Cody Rhodes winning, not a surprise here. I figured he was going to retain here. This, I thought, was by far the weakest match on the entire card. I don't know, just something felt off about this match. I don't know, just Cody was carrying the match, obviously, but I don't know, something was not right about this match. I thought this was the weakest match on the entire card. We have Private Party taking on Santana and Ortiz next in tag team competition. Matt Hardy accompanied Private Party to the ring for their match against Santana and Ortiz. Orange Cassidy was sitting up near the announce table for reasons that were never discussed. He does not get on commentary, doesn't say anything. Chris Jericho is pretty much annoyed by him being there the entire time. The heels work over the baby faces for a while. Private Party was not able to get into the blocks, and then eventually they do get going here by hitting their double team offense, high flying action to take control of the match. Ortiz is able to get things back under control to slow the pace down. Then Private Party, once they come back out of the commercial, gets some more steam. We get an exchange of double team moves, and ultimately in the end, again, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise here, Private Party actually gets the win. Marquez Queen was able to get the win for his team here, so the Inner Circle loses another match here, so that was not very good. The Inner Circle did not look good on this night. Jericho obviously not very happy with the situation, and afterwards Jericho and Cassidy near the announce position had kind of a pull apart. They never really brawled, just kind of just whatever here, so they're clearly continuing to set up some stuff between those two. So we have in your main event here, we had the AEW World Tag Team title match here. We had Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page defending the titles against the Best Friends. We see Trent and Chuck Taylor show up for their title shot, with Trent's mom actually dropping them off in a minivan. So, and that was kind of nice. Taylor and Omega started the match with quick exchange of counters and takedowns. Just some textbook opening stuff you would see in a classic tag team match, I thought. Neither team got the clear advantage early, and then this Page and Trent tagged in and they traded punches here. FTR eventually came out to the stage with some lawn chairs and a cooler to watch the final minutes of the match. We see the Best Friends making the comeback. Taylor hits a big dive to take Omega so they could isolate on Page. Hangman fought back and took out both men with a series of moves. Trent countered a moonsault from Omega, and then Taylor followed up with a spike power driver for a very close near fall. Then they hit their finisher on Page, almost won the match, but then Omega was right there to break it up. Hangman did hit the buckshot lariat eventually in the end for the win after a long back and forth exchange. So they do retain as expected, and FTR offered the winners a beer afterwards, and then they got into an argument, and that's how they went off the air on AEW Fighter Fest 2020 Night 1. The match itself, it's a good match for a good main event here. The right team obviously won. They're continuing to build up the stuff with FTR and Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, so obviously FTR, you got to think at some point will be next in line for a potential title shot, maybe at some point getting the titles, but we know FTR is going to be taking on the Young Bucks first, and you got to think the winner of that match down the line is going to get the shot and probably win the titles. So that was it. That was night one of AEW Fyter Fest 2020. Let's get on to WWE NXT. This was taped earlier in the day on Wednesday from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida. Here we had Tom Phillips in the arena there. We had Mauro Ranallo and Beth Phoenix calling the action from their respective homes. They began with the Fatal 4-Way Women's Elimination match here with Mia Yim, Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae, and Dakota Kai taking on each other here. We get early on here. Candice LeRae took a back elbow from Tegan Nox in the corner with a corner big boot from Dakota Kai. And then Mia Yim actually put away Candice LeRae with the Protect Your Neck for the first elimination, which I thought was a surprise here. Candice LeRae is the first of the 4 to be eliminated. That was very surprising. Dakota Kai gets double teamed on by the baby faces here for a while, and then after a miscommunication when Nox was hit by Soul Food, Dakota Kai actually snuck in with the O'Connor roll on Mia Yim and actually got the win. So Mia Yim gets eliminated next here. So we're down to Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox. Of course, there was no Raquel Gonzalez here. She was banned from ringside, which I honestly did not know. So they just go at it for a while, back and forth action here. Good stuff from these women. Ultimately, Tegan Nox was able to fight off Dakota Kai's kicks and best shots and all that kind of stuff. She ultimately hits the Molly go round and then hits the Shiniest Wizard and actually gets the win here, which I thought was an absolute surprise. I did not see Tegan Nox winning this. She actually pins Dakota Kai and she gets the shot, the NXT Women's title. Very surprising. I did not see that coming. I thought for sure this was all set up for Dakota Kai to win here, but you know, it is what it is, so congratulations to Tegan Nox. I thought this was a very good match. Again, I thought the pacing was a little bit off, maybe a little sloppy, but I thought overall they did pretty good here. Oney Larkin and Timothy Thatcher took on one another here for the next match. This was a good old school match, but beforehand, Damian Priest backstage before the match called out Cameron Grimes to fight him like a man, stop playing trick. And then Oney Larkin and Timothy Thatcher had this match. This was a great old school wrestling match. A lot of mat action here, a lot of grappling, a lot of good mat, just good stuff here. You want a good old school wrestling match, this was your match here. These guys were just good and just going at it one another here. Ultimately, Thatcher gets control. He works on the left arm of Larkin. Larkin kept fighting back here with technical holds, but eventually Timothy Thatcher was able to lock in the Fujiwara armbar, and he got the tap out here. As expected, Timothy Thatcher won, but this was just a great old school match. Good stuff here from these guys. One of the best things on the entire night from both shows, in my opinion, so this is a match you should go check out. Next up was the 1-on-2 match here, where Rhea Ripley taking on Aaliyah and Robert Stone. Of course, the hook to the match is, should Rhea Ripley somehow lose this match, she would have to join the Robert Stone brand. Before this match got started, we saw Karrion Kross and Scarlett promise that time was running out in this video package here, and they're obviously going after Adam Cole, it looks like. So we get on to the match here. Robert Stone and Aaliyah actually had pretty good chemistry here. He was in the right position to help Aaliyah. They actually wore down Rhea Ripley with strikes here for a while, which was very surprising. I was amazed that they actually got this much action and much stuff in on Rhea Ripley. Ultimately, Aaliyah does lock in a crossface, and then Robert Stone actually has Rhea Ripley in the Boston Crab, so they were double submission. She's able to get out of it. She refuses to give up. And then ultimately, you knew the things were going to start breaking down between Robert Stone and Aaliyah. At one point, it looked like Robert Stone wanted to go for a cover on Rhea Ripley, and Aaliyah wanted to do that. And then eventually, they work it out where Aaliyah tries to pin Rhea Ripley. She kicks out. And then Rhea Ripley does recover to fight back. She did a deal here eventually when Robert Stone was down in the corner. They did a deal where Aaliyah kind of crotched Robert Stone between the legs, and then she ultimately gets both of them back into the middle and locks them both in the Prism Trap, aka the Standing Texas Cloverleaf, and they both tap out pretty quickly to that. So Rhea Ripley, to the surprise of no one, wins the match, and she does not join the Robert Stone brand. I thought this was the weakest match on the entire show. Unfortunately, it involves Rhea Ripley here, but it is what it is. So, and I will say one thing. I saw something on social media, and I had not thought about it, that with Robert Stone here, especially the way he looks now, he's kind of like a poor man's version of Tony Khan. I saw that, and I did not think about that at first, but then it actually does make sense. I think that may be what they may be trying to do here, trying to, have Robert Stone portray their version of Tony Khan. I thought that was kind of interesting. I had not thought about that. So, anyways, we get the strap match up next here. We had Roderick Strong and Dexter Loomis in another contest here. Roderick Strong attacked Dexter Loomis before the bell, and then that was before the straps were on. And then eventually, they're both strapped, and then we just see Loomis going after Roderick Strong. He tries to run away. Loomis pulls him back in repeatedly. They eventually work their way to the stage where Roderick Strong finally gains the advantage on Loomis for a while. And then he actually works him back into the ring. Strong whips him several times with the strap. He uses trash talk to overcome the fear. Bobby Fish eventually does make his way out. As I figured there would be some interference here. He tripped Loomis to set up a running knee by Strong. He's still kicked out. Then he ran Strong into Fish and then hit a big Uranagi before locking in the silence with a strap around his mouth, and then Roderick Strong eventually did tap out here. So Dexter Loomis does get the win as expected here. If you remember correctly, Roderick Strong actually beat Dexter Loomis, so some 50-50 booking. He beat him a little while back here, so Loomis does get his revenge and gets the win here, as I expected he would. So just it was a good match, very good match here. It was a good stuff here overall. We got a video package next that was shown for next week's title match between Adam Cole and Keith Lee, and both men basically put over this upcoming match as their biggest match of their respective careers. Then eventually we see Candice LeRae get into a brawl with me and him backstage, so it could be setting up something there. Isaiah Swerve Scott tries to break it up, and then we see Johnny Gargano actually make an appearance. He pulled him away, and then we had the officials separate the two men. So clearly it looks like they may be setting up something with Gargano and Isaiah Swerve Scott as well for a match. Then we see Santana Escobar, the former King Cuerno of Lucha Underground, explain that he, alongside Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wild, would change the perception of Lucha Libre. Drake Maverick interrupted proceedings, and he was joined by Breezango to run him off. Fandango challenged the three heels to a match for night 2 of the Great American Bash, so we'll see if we get that match. Cameron Grimes then was interviewed. He said he was unfazed by Damian Priest's earlier comments telling him he would lose again. Then he was more focused on the title opportunities than Damian Priest. And we see Mercedes Martinez promised to make a mark in NXT, starting with her return to action next week. So we'll be seeing her on night 2 of the Great American. So we have coming up here in the main event now, we have Io Shirai taking on Sasha Banks in non-title action here. Bayley is out there with Sasha Banks here. Sasha Banks and Bayley arrive in this nice looking car. They're both wearing Great American Bash type Americana gear here. Io Shirai walked out with her attire and entrance. And then they try, Bayley and Sasha try to taunt her. She doesn't react to any of it. Just great stuff here. This was commercial-free action here for the main event. Back and forth action. They just, both women with kicks and forearms and all that kind of stuff. Just good stuff. And then Sasha Banks eventually took over and powerbombed her at one point into the plexiglass. Io Shirai then eventually caught Sasha Banks into the crossface. And then eventually Bayley threw in her WWE Women's Tag Team title into the ring to distract the referee. Bayley hits Io Shirai with a forearm. And then we have some more chaos. And then eventually, not surprising because I figured it might happen, Asuka makes a, quote, surprise appearance here from under the ring. She eventually nails Sasha Banks with green mist in the face. And then Io Shirai hit her moonsault and got the win here. So Io Shirai does get the win here. Obviously, it was not a clean finish here. I suspected that Asuka would get involved in this, which was not a surprise. Even though they did not announce it, I think we are going to probably get a tag team match with Io Shirai and Asuka taking on Bayley and Sasha on week 2 of the Great American Bash. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was for the tag team titles. I could see that coming. So it has been announced as of the time I'm recording this, but I could definitely see that happening. So that was it. This was a very good match overall. So that's it. That was NXT Great American Bash that took place from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida. Before we get on to the ratings here real quick, supposedly on AEW Dynamite, Taz had come out with Brian Cage for a promo. It was announced on Fyter Fest there that the Moxley-Brian Cage match has been pushed back a couple of weeks because of the concerns with the CB19. He cut a promo basically saying that apparently WWE was not too happy with, saying, quote, if you decide to get your but here to work next week. You would get tested again here in AEW because John, this was Taz speaking, because John, as you know, we don't run a sloppy shop, Taz said. So clearly a shot at WWE. WWE supposedly was not happy with that line, and it is what it is. So obviously Moxley has tested negative twice for the CV-19, but he's staying back just as a precaution, and he's expected to be back in 2 weeks because AEW on Fyter Fest did announce in night 2 of Fyter Fest the following week in 2 weeks will be Fight for the Fallen. So we'll see if NXT counters that with something else. So that was what we had there. So let's get on to the ratings and the numbers here. This week, Great American Bash actually did beat the Fyter Fest edition of AEW. So they won in viewership, but Dynamite won in the key demo once again. NXT's Great American Bash won it with 792,000 viewers, up 1% from last week. AEW bounced back with 748,000 viewers, up 18% from last week's number. NXT did win it by 6%, so they win for the second week in a row in viewership. AEW came in 6th for the night in the Cable 150 in the demo, while NXT was 13th. NXT was 60th in viewership, AEW was 61st. AEW did a 0.29 rating in the 18-49 demo, which was up 32% from last week, while NXT did a 0.22, which was up 16% from last week. This is the second highest NXT viewership of 2020, their best since the February 19th episode, which was the first episode after the TakeOver Portland event, which did 794,000 viewers. It was the best number that NXT has garnered in the demo since they started running the empty arena shows in March. For AEW, it was their most viewers for an episode of Dynamite since the June 3rd episode. MTV's Challenge topped the night in the 18-49 demo on cable with a 0.47 rating with 851,000 viewers. Sean Hannity's show on Fox News Channel topped the night in viewership with 4.326 million viewers, coming in third for the night in the demo with a 0.37 rating. Chicago Med on NBC topped the night in network television in viewership with 3.7 million viewers. Game On CBS television topped the night in the demo with a 0.6 rating. So with NXT winning the viewership battle for the second week in a row, AEW now has 31 wins, NXT has 7, and we have the 1 tie. AEW won all the demos this week except 50+, which helped NXT get the win. My pick of the week this week, this was very, very close. I was actually waffling back and forth on this. It was so close. But I'm going to give the slight edge this week to NXT. It could have gone either way. This was essentially a coin flip. But the slight edge to NXT this week, I thought their action was just a little bit better. But really nothing too much wrong with either show. The wrestling fans were the big winner on Wednesday night. No matter which show you watch, you would have been very satisfied, I thought. So overall, my slight edge goes to NXT. So that's it. So through 37 episodes, I have NXT with 21 picks and AEW with 16 picks. Let me know down in the comment section below what your favorite moment from Wednesday's wrestling action was. We'll see you next time with the next Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz here on YouTube. Bye for now, everyone.